Okay, welcome everybody on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon for our new episode on digital transformation leaders, our weekly webinar series in conjunction with the inaugural DX Awards. My name is Lars, former journalist and professional storyteller, and I'm your host together with Andreas, who is the chairman of the said DX Awards. More about him and the awards in a moment. Today's episode is supported by DKSH as the sponsor of the awards B2B category. And the topic today is fantastic. It's B2B e-commerce, riding the perfect storm. We talked about B2C last week, so let's look a little bit on the B2B side of things. We have fantastic guests from DKSH. We have Martin Frech, and we have Ruips Phua, and we have Lisa, the co-founder and CEO of Zyllem. They'll introduce themselves a little bit later. Let's look into the topic. Why is B2B e-commerce that big? If we look, it's projected to reach about 20 trillion, not billion, 20 trillion US dollars by 2027, up from about 5 to 6 just 7 years ago. So it will be a massive business opportunity, especially in Southeast Asia. Indonesia was forecasted to account for over 50% of the Southeast Asia e-commerce market in total just in 5 years. And if we look a little bit into the big players in the market right now, we have the Amazons, the Alibabas, the Rakutens, the global sources, Walmarts, IndiaMart. So a lot of global players want to get into this. At the same time, we have Amazon rebranded its B2B e-commerce operations into Amazon Business, and they just did over $1 billion with their B2B play a year ago. We have, of course, Alibaba want to get into the game here. Yeah, let's look how Alibaba, with a share of over 30% of e-commerce in China, is now expanding its ops space across India, Europe, the US, and of course, Southeast Asia. So big topic, and most likely, like many other topics this year that have to do with digital transformation, have seen a massive acceleration. So it's good news and bad news, depending on which side of the game you're playing. But how can we better prepare for forecast? Let's look, before we go into our DX Awards, just a reminder, this show is not just about us, it's especially for you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please use the Q&A section. So please leave your questions in the Q&A section, have a look at the questions that others posted, and then you can actually upvote them so that we make sure we have about 15 to 20 minutes at the end of today's episode just for you to make sure we answer your questions. So without further ado, over to Andreas and the awards.
Well, thank you very much, Lars, for that introduction. As always, energetic and powerful, so thank you for that. Yeah, just very quickly, I've been, I think, presenting these slides, and I think it's the 4th time today. So, you know, I think some of you that have returned back to our webinar series have seen the slides. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but just very quickly why we are here. It's because of the Digital Transformation Award. This was initiated beginning of this year, and obviously with the COVID situation, this has accelerated, I think, you know, the importance of such awards. So let me go a bit into why we're doing this. One further, Clarissa. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time here, but 2 main reasons why we initiated that. It's really about recognizing the efforts of our teams in digital transformation. I mean, we have been working a lot during the different, you know, last couple of months on the different teams, on different projects. And we just want to recognize that, and we want to provide a platform for your teams to really showcase what they have done. That's the first topic. The second topic is actually around what we're doing today. It's really about best practice sharing. It's bringing together the leaders of the industry of these topics that we have been talking about and then we'll talk about today to really exchange on what is working, what is not working, where can we learn from each other. I think that's very, very critical. The subcategories you can see here, it's advanced manufacturing, it's B2B, B2C, financial services. So from whatever industry you are, you can apply for the award, not a problem. Now, then you will also ask about eligibility. You know, am I eligible? Yes, you are. You are a registered company in Singapore, and so you can apply, so not a problem. Again, you don't have to be a Swiss company. You can be a German, a French, a Swedish, whatever you are, you can apply for that award. So we are very grateful also for all the support that we get from the ecosystem, from the different chambers, as you can see here on the slide, the Eurochamber, the French Chamber, the Germans, the Spanish Chamber. Very, very happy about that. So it's really broadly anchored in the ecosystem. And what we're also very happy about is really that we have all the support from ESG, from EDB, and also from SG Innovate. So we are very, very happy about that. On the other side, we have our partners. We have Crealogics, we have DKSH, we have Zyllem, EDB, we have Deloitte that is helping us on the assessment framework. And that brings me to the next topic. How is this going to be assessed? It's going to be 5 assessment criteria. It's based on a digital maturity model of Deloitte, and we're trying to make it as objective as possible. But we will also have you, you know, the public, to have an opinion about what you think or who should be winning this award. So we will have pitching sessions. We'll talk about that a bit later, where you, the public, can really also give your opinion on the different projects. One further, Clarissa. Okay, so how is this going to look like? It's soon, end of September. So, you know, before September 30th, we need to have your applications in. So please provide your application if you haven't done so. Then we will have a shortlisting, as you can see here, judgment by Deloitte and also the jury. And then we will have these pitching sessions, as I was saying. So we will have subcategory winners. That's going to happen in the first pitching session, and then we will have a final round on the overall winner, which will happen in the second session in November. I think the benefits are clear, as I was saying before. I think what is really waiting for you is attractive prices, and you will get a digital certificate that will prove that you have actually won that certificate. I think that's very important these days. And then if you have any questions on the submission, please get in touch with Andrea, Clarissa. They're waiting for you, and we're looking forward to speaking with you. So much to the award. Lars, over to you.
Thank you, Andreas. I think, you know, if we would do it another week, I think we should switch. I think by now I've learned.
Very true, very true.
But really, I think it's a fantastic initiative, and everybody out there who's still on the fence, please join. It's a fantastic opportunity to get acknowledged for the fantastic work you've done in this area. So now let's have a look into what's on everybody's mind. So our poll this week: B2B e-commerce in Southeast Asia. What about Alibaba? Is it the elephant in the room to worry about? Yes or no? Very simple question. Let's launch the poll and see what's everybody's opinion. Is Alibaba the elephant in the room we should be worrying about? Yes or no? So everybody can do that. Let's give it a little bit of thinking music.
What have you pressed, Lars?
Well, just by sheer size, it would be silly not to worry about them, right? I mean, just by pure market cap, by the experience, by the investments across Southeast Asia and even beyond, they're absolutely to reckon with. So let's close the poll and have a look. What would you say, Andreas?
Well, it's a clear yes. You know, this is too much of a simple question.
Let's see the results. Is anybody not worried?
Ooh, very surprising. I am very surprised.
So are we worried for nothing? Let's look into that in a moment. That's I think it's a very interesting outcome, and we can also ask our panelists. And that brings us directly to the first man on the hot chair, and that's Martin Frech, the Chief Strategy and Head of E-commerce at DKSH. Hi, Martin. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Lars. Thank you very much. Appreciate the energetic welcome and also the poll. I was also surprised by the result. Hi, everyone. My name is Martin Frech. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer and the Head of E-commerce for DKSH. I'm very excited to be with you today. Really looking forward to our panel discussion, mostly because I believe we live in really amazing, exciting times. We're going to talk today about B2B, and it's a topic that's close to my heart because I feel that we're at the cusp of a big transformation that B2C has given us a preview of, but that isn't really fully appreciated yet for the heft and the massive change that's coming on the B2B side. I kind of feel like B2B is the underappreciated but bigger brother of B2C. Let's be honest, B2C typically gets all of the spotlight, right? It's the sexy one. It's the one with campaigns and brand messages and out-of-home advertising and all of this cool, fun, exciting stuff. Whereas B2B is, businesses dealing with other businesses. But what's easy to overlook is B2B is much, much larger. Lars already hinted at the numbers earlier. B2B is more sophisticated, but B2B is a little bit late out of the starting blocks compared to B2C, and we're only just scratching the surface on the digital transformation for B2B. If we look at what is B2B sales anyway, I've been asked to briefly share kind of how we think about it in the industry where we deal with. And the way we think about it is that B2B sales fall really into one of three buckets. The first one is the most obvious one. It's the one that we know from B2C, and that is a sale between one business and another that is digitally transacted. Meaning the sale happens online. It could be through a platform, it could be through some proprietary mechanism, but it's a digitally transacted sale. And that part is well understood, and the transformation there is well underway, although apparently there still are companies that make purchases from other companies by, fax and letters, and I'm sure somewhere still smoke signals. But there's two other buckets that are kind of underappreciated for B2B sales, and that's around digital leads. So those are sales, as we say, that are digitally initiated, that wouldn't have happened if there weren't someone driving a digital sale through electronic means. So that would be a sale that was generated or originated online. It could be an online campaign. It could be any other digital mechanism that leads to the sale. And if you kind of discount those, you're discounting a huge opportunity for sales, even if the sale then happens by, fax or any other means. So that's kind of the second bucket. And then finally, there's the digitally supported sales. So those are sales that may happen by, letter or any other traditional means, but that are supported through online touchpoints, be it from a digital catalog that one company offers another, or through a recommendation engine that's running in the background, or anything like that. So if you look at this B2B universe in its entirety, it becomes clear that B2B is so much more than that one column on the left that B2C is known for. B2B is big. B2B is just starting its transformation. There's endless levels of sophistication that we can add, and now it's on us to make sure that we're driving the potential out of B2B sales, and I'm looking forward to discussing that topic with you and the other panelists today.
Fantastic. Thanks for the introduction and providing a little bit of framework here, Martin. I like, your first kind of quote, B2B is the bigger and much sexier brother of B2C e-commerce. I like that. Good. So then let's go over to our other fantastic panelists, and we have Lisa and Ruips here. So Lisa, from your point of view from the Zyllem side, maybe you can quickly introduce what Zyllem is doing in this space and what you have seen in this area this year.
Thanks, Lars. Zyllem is a SaaS platform for enterprises to manage their logistic network, whether they own the network or not. So we are pretty agnostic to the industry. So a lot of our customer comes from distributor, their retailer. For us, we're agnostic. What Martin says is true. I think B2B is sexier, is bigger, but I think that it's also a little bit slower. Because the customer is, I believe that they have some sort of tolerance in regards of B2B sales is very slow. You know, it's not like the e-commerce, but I believe that in the last year or so, the consumer has changed, because at the end of the day, whether it's a B2B or B2C, it's just human behind it. And as consumer, when we are spoiled with options, then we expect the same type of demand with the folks that we interact with, whether it's a B2B sales or a B2C sale. So what I am seeing with my customers and also folks that I speak with is that they are trying to keep up with the trend, and they're trying to get more information in regards of how do they support and increase the customer experience in the journey, and to give them relevant information in real time, whether it's B2B or B2C. So it is a lot of catching up to do, but for companies that are proactive in looking at innovation and scale, we're seeing that these companies are being more successful today during COVID.
Fantastic. Thanks for the introduction and sharing your thoughts on this, Lisa. Over to Ruips. You're the regional e-commerce lead for DKSH here in this part of the world. So what are you seeing, how has your firm responded with this change brought on us or accelerated by COVID? Without upsetting Martin, you both work in the same firm, right?
Yeah, sure. So actually during the COVID time, especially for our industry as FMCG or consumer health, this is where we noticed that a lot of B2B partners that we work with, they actually shifted the kind of products that they are focusing on, which means they actually reduced the products to focus only on the essential products, and therefore they will be actually deactivating the longer tail and the more non-essential items. And there is also certain cessation of certain online stores as well, so that they can have the right capacity to focus on what's important in their point of view. Another thing is that because of the situation, right, the operations of these B2B partners are also affected. So some examples could be when as a consumer, you want to order from their side, the time slot is full, so you can't get your groceries on time. Another one is a lot of people is trying to order at the same time, and this leads to a website crash. So it becomes quite a negative experience during that period of time. Yeah, so some of the actions that from a supplier, which is DKSH, what did we do is that we actually responded by shifting some of our resources into B2C instead. So for example, we set up a store to continue to represent some of the less essential brands, for example, to continue to represent our clients. Another one is we also continue to look at what types of B2B partners is still very relevant during this period. And one I would like to mention is like a Foodpanda. So Foodpanda is like an on-demand groceries player. And they actually, I would say their business model is pretty COVID immune because they deliver the products right to the consumers' doorsteps. So that is where we activate a lot more activities with them. And I would say the last thing that we make some adjustments will be in terms of the spend that we have. We look at the categories across the board. We know that some are pretty stable. Natural demand is there. We cut the spend and we put it on others that will need more exposure. And that's how we reacted during that period.
Okay, fantastic. So, Martin, maybe just to round this introduction up, DKSH just very recently doing a capital markets days confirmed that your sales through e-commerce are 150 millions or something already. That's a big number. Is that where you are or where you want to be? And how has that accelerated, and how has that also brought or forced change on your organization?
Yeah, nicely noted. It was just yesterday. The way it was worded was, and I can't talk specifics, of course, but the way it was worded was that our target for 2020 is going to be 150 million, or above that, actually. Look, let's be realistic. DKSH is an $11.5 billion, or franc, which is about the same, company. So e-commerce for us is still small. But it has massive growth rates. Over the last couple of years, we've more than tenfold increased our e-commerce sales. Right now, the sky's the limit. There's more to come, especially if you look at the three categories of B2B sales. So the truth of the matter is DKSH represents our clients' brands. When a client entrusts us with their brand, our promise back to the client is, we will make your product available everywhere where people that would buy it are shopping. And that includes offline, that includes online, etc. So of course, e-commerce is a core component of that. We're an omni-channel player. So yeah, the sky's the limit, and I believe that it's only going to accelerate. If you look at Southeast Asia, depending on the market, online transactions are mid to high single digits. In South Korea and China, it's upwards of 40%. We're heading in that direction, not the other. So sky's the limit.
Okay, Andreas, let's bring us all a little bit down from the sky, maybe.
Yes. No, I just wanted to ask also the panel. You know, if we go down to ASEAN, and if we look at the region, because this is the region that we're in, right? Very heterogeneous market requirements. Very different countries, still, you know, very heterogeneous situation with customs. I mean, I've experienced it myself. It can be a real pain. We have very dispersed geographies. We have a lot of SMEs. We have, you know, numerous challenges in ASEAN. So what would you say is specifically the biggest challenge, or that you have experienced now over the last couple of months in these countries? What has really brought the pain to your organization? What was it? Maybe Lisa, you want to start?
I would say that the common pain is like being in Asia. I think a lot of people find that it's a foreign concept not to deploy resources at their leisure. You know, being in Asia, we always look at manpower as being very affordable. Therefore, you solve every single problem with resource. Then COVID came along, resource is a big constraint, whether it's, you know, people can't move around, or do you have government compliance that says, oh, you can only have 50% of the folks at on-premise. So it is a huge foreign concept. It's really big, and many enterprises today, surprisingly, still run on paper and pen. So it is sort of an added challenge for them to not have resources, and all of their operation is on paper and pen and manual. So I believe that is really one of the biggest, I would say, eye-opener for companies to overcome, on top of everything else that they have to do.
Was there kind of I mean, did they recognize that and kind of a shift in mindset to say, okay, we need to now invest more into digitalization, or is it just something that they acknowledge, they managed the challenge somehow, but, you know, no change will occur in the future?
I think the need for digitization has always been there. But I believe that as a human, people tends to procrastinate on that decision, and they said, you know, why rock the boat? You know, keep it, because there's nothing wrong. But when COVID came along, I believe that bubble got bigger, and so it was unable for them to manage the situation. But the need is always there. I believe the need got bigger. So they no longer should procrastinate. They need to act on it versus just to keep the way it is, because obviously it's not sustainable anymore.
Okay, maybe over to you, Ruips. I mean, you're also very close to the customer, right? You have experienced some pain. So what was the biggest pain for you, you know, during the last couple of months?
Yeah, I think for me is it actually changes a little bit. So previously, I would say the pain is to get more people that is of a certain age group to start buying online. And after the COVID situation, that has already improved. So I would say that the next difficulty immediately would be on getting B2B more sexy. So for example, if you compare to other parts of the world, I will look at grocery in terms of subscription services. So in Amazon, on the non-Asia side, there's Amazon Buttons or Amazon Dash already. And right now, in our region, there isn't still like a really proper, solid grocery subscription service. And that is something that is something I feel that there is inherent demand, but there is still not a player is able to put the plan together and put it to execution yet.
But if you look at the distribution landscape, just very quickly, you know, I mean, you have some very traditional distributors here in the region, like B2B distributors that can, you know, that offer a range of different products, B2B products. So, I mean, have they realized that they have to change something? Or are they kind of looking at maybe other players to help them with their e-commerce strategy, or are they investing themselves? I mean, is there really a change of mindset according to your experience?
Yes, I would say the strong change is they become a lot more open to I would say the super apps especially. So looking at the Grab side, a lot of small business owners and also even retail chains, they are on that app already and they provide their services on there. So that is something that we have not seen, or in fact, it has taken off a lot faster compared to previous COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe over to Martin. Do you see like more on a global scale now any significant changes in terms of, you know, how distributors are maybe acting, or will there be a consolidation wave, or, you know, is digital transformation and the e-commerce push really seen from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a tricky question because there's always headwinds and tailwinds, right? I would argue you have tailwinds like you've never seen before, right? You have the situation that Lisa alluded to where you can't have unlimited people in the warehouse. You have people that are ordering online for the first time in their lives and realize that, hey, this isn't so bad and this actually works and the price is competitive. But at the same time, if you look specifically at B2B in Asia, you couldn't dream up an environment that's less conducive to the fast-acting, you know, e-commerce world that you see in other parts of the world. If you draw, for example, a contrast between the US and Indonesia, digital penetration isn't that different, right? But in the US, you have one giant consolidated uniform market with the same brands available everywhere, with the same product offerings available everywhere. In Indonesia, you have, or take the Philippines, you have literally thousands of islands, no national supply chain, no consolidated offering, cheap labor, which historically has been used to just throw another 10 people at it and solve the problem. And you have people that follow human nature. Again, to what Lisa mentioned, that you have people that say, look, I'm going to keep my system of ordering with pen and paper or fax or telephone as long as it still works, and it's still kind of working. And then add onto that the final piece of headwind, which is in the midst of the pandemic. Let's be honest, e-commerce also wasn't showing itself from its best side, right? We had website crashes, as Ruips mentioned. We had products not being available. So for someone who's witnessing that for the first time, it wasn't the best experience in the world. So if you combine all of that, I think, yes, there's tailwind that you've never seen before, but there's still a substantial amount of headwind, especially in B2B, and it's coming, but it's certainly not coming as fast as one would hope.
And would you say, just maybe one last question, you know, on the B2B side, I mean, what you see in China, we always say ASEAN is like 10 years, you know, behind what's happening in China. So there has been a strong push in B2B, also e-commerce, you know, new startups coming up in China, taking, you know, whole chunks of markets of products online. I mean, would you foresee a similar development here in ASEAN?
Yeah, look, I think that comparison comes up a lot. I think ASEAN has a lot to be proud of and is world leading in many of these areas. It's just unevenly distributed across ASEAN, right? Singapore leads in some cases, Indonesia leads in others, right? And all of the others are somewhere in between. It's just that it's inconsistent compared to China, this giant monolith where, you know, everything is more or less consistent and there's one or two big players that roll up the market. That's different in Southeast Asia, but that's also what makes Southeast Asia exciting and fun.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's look at a different perspective, and maybe let's start with Lisa. At Zyllem, you're working with 3PLs and enterprises, and you try to convince enterprises they should own the network, if I understand it correctly, right? A lot of times, and I was 5 years with DHL, so our premise was give everything to us, hassle-free, you're good to go. What you don't know is you're actually selling your soul and you don't own your supply chain. So how do you convince them to really take ownership while they've been taught the other way around? And then I have a follow-up question to that.
Sure. I think our job is not to convince them to own a logistic network. I think our customer know exactly how they want to operate their logistic network, whether they want to own it or they want to have that network with 3PL partnerships. I believe that, just from my personal view, that you cannot run Asia without 3PL partnership. But it's just that level, the trust that what we want to educate people is the trust in that partnership. You know, where do you spend your time with 3PL? Do you spend their time with bidding, try to reduce the cost of the service? Or you spend the time to build a partnership that says, hey, together, let's try to increase my service quality. Together, let's try to figure out how we can give out more different type of services to our customer. But it's just up to the customer to identify what do they want to take and what do they want to let go. For a classic example is that we all know that if you distribute in Indonesia, you need 100 partners to distribute in Indonesia because of all of the islands. There's not going to be one partner that can satisfy and help you distribute across Indonesia. But how do you manage that partnership? You know, so for us in Zyllem, we believe that every single company should have the ability to take control of a logistic network, whether they own it or not. Have that eyes, to have that lens will give that visibility and control. And then together with your partner, you can choose which area you want to take. Like, do you want to do the planning or do you want your 3PL to do the planning? Do you want to optimize based on the vehicle they give you, or do you want them to optimize and build that trust? What I see in Asia is that trust, I think that's a sort of like a taboo kind of word there, and it does lead to many different things. And I believe, you know, when I moved to the US back to into Asia, I see that a lot of the operations and a lot of the SOP in Asia is built around non-trust. So therefore, what they wanted to do is they want to build an operation that have zero tolerance of fraud, which we know that doesn't exist. You have to have some tolerance of fraud, and you need to take certain risks to allow that tolerance of fraud, but then you have to have a system where you can audit and reduce that tolerance of fraud. And that's no difference than you and your relationship with your 3PL.
So then just a quick follow-up question. So digital transformation and to make your services work require data transparency, right? Somebody needs to basically, so is that transparently needed but wanted? Because you said it's not necessarily a culture of trust. So how do you identify the right partners, or how do you convince them to kind of drop their data pants?
I think it's all about seeing the value proposition on all angles. Why do you need data transparency? Because you as a company need to be compliant to, you need to answer to your customer, you need to answer to your supplier. So it's not that because you want it, it's because there is a business need. And anybody that service for you, whether it's your employees or your 3PL, needs to understand your business requirements. So it's not a leisure. Everybody wants real information at real time. So to have data digitized is key for everybody to work together. And I think that you just have to really spell it out in regards to how it will benefit them. So how does it benefit your 3PL? Because you don't have to pick up the phone every single 5 minutes and call them and ask them where is the deliveries. Let them work and do the deliveries for you. So if you take the need of digitization and then you slice it into the lens of every single stakeholder that is involved and show them what is in it for them.
What's in it for them? What's in it for our audience is definitely the ability to ask questions. So a quick reminder, please post your questions in the Q&A section. We have the first ones coming in. Also, if you like a question, please vote it up. But now the next question with Andreas.
Yeah, maybe just if we shift a bit more again to DKSH and the view of, let's say, a normal supplier also. I know you're not a normal supplier, but if you take the position of a 3M or a Siemens, I mean, looking at their channel, you always have this traditional sales model, right? Which is like the sales representative owns the customer, right? He's incentivized by owning the customer, and he's incentivized by generating sales. Now, if we look at this shift that is happening, if you implement an e-commerce strategy, then suddenly, the sales representative might lose power. He might be, kind of taking on a different role within the organization. And data, as Lisa was saying, is becoming critical. So, and we have been talking about that during all our webinars. So is the data scientist, taking over the job of the sales representative? Question to maybe Martin.
Unequivocally, no. We see this again and again and again. There are those that dream that say, hey, all of those sales reps, they can be replaced by zeros and ones. And we see again and again, that is simply not the case. There are parts of the job that can be replaced by zeros and ones. It's a colossal and embarrassing waste of time if a sales rep visits a store and spends part of that valuable time, tapping an order into somewhere and selecting a SKU from a long list and doing things like that. Colossal waste of time. Ideally shouldn't happen. The reality is it happens, and that's how the business was built. That's fine. But if we can alleviate the time from that, which is something that anyone can do and can happen much faster through auto replenishment, subscription service like Ruips mentioned, or even an online channel, then the rep can do what they're really meant to do, which is be a growth partner, which is be a consultant, which is be an advisor. If you think about it, that's the true function of a sales rep. The sales rep isn't there to take an order. The sales rep is there to advise, to consult, and to partner with the other company. And if you free them up for that, and if you can get that mental shift to happen, that unleashes the energy and the power that justifies building an extra channel. The sales rep that is worried about not getting sales credit because they're not taking the order is not thinking about it the right way. Yeah. The sales rep that says, great, I don't need to waste my time tapping numbers and writing things on a piece of paper, and now I can spend that time deepening the relationship and advising on growth. That's the future.
But then you're basically saying that the classic hunter profile that we all know, right, in sales, farmer, hunter, the guy that really goes after the customers, and where you have to measure his achievement very clearly, because otherwise you cannot reward him. it means that this hunter is going to disappear. Is this what you're saying?
Absolutely not. No, we need the hunters. We need the sales rep that's hungry for the next outlet to cover or the next customer to cover.
But if you cannot measure him, because the digital touch points have been on so many other, entities.
But that's just now it just becomes a question of how do I measure? That's a different question. That doesn't negate the need for the hunter. That doesn't negate the need for a relationship. Now it's just a question of how do I measure things? And you can fix that through accounting for touch points. You can do it by region. You can do it by geography. There's a million ways you can account sales and give people credit. The point is you still need the hunter. That's the lifeblood of sales.
Okay.
Yeah, I might have a separate discussion with you on that because I didn't find the right solution. Yeah.
Let's talk.
Let's hunt over to the next segment in the interest of time, and we have already great questions coming in. But first, we do something that we call rapid fire. So Andreas and I will fire up a question. It's a yes, no, left, right, black, white answer. Just want to do kind of a little bit of the pulse on where you think things are going, right? Okay. So first question, what's more important, shifting existing customers online or capturing new online business? Lisa.
Shifting.
What?
Shifting the customer.
Ruips.
To me, it's balance, both sides.
You're not allowed. You're not allowed.
New business.
New business. Martin.
Say B2B shifting.
Okay, interesting. Over. Next question.
Okay, so B2B discount, that goes into a very similar discussion that we had. The B2B discounts seem beneficial now. Is it harmful in the long run?
Can you repeat that again, Andres?
So B2B discounts, so discounts with B2B sales seem beneficial now. Is it harmful in the long run?
No.
No? Okay. Martin?
No, discounts are a normal thing.
Okay.
Ruips, come on, give us a different opinion.
Yes for me, actually, it's yes for me. It is harmful.
It is harmful, good, okay.
Okay.
Personalized B2B online experiences. We know that from the B2C side, personalized experiences for B2B. Is it a concern or a game changer?
It's a game changer.
Game changer.
Game changer.
Okay. And last but not least, Andreas.
Yeah, acceleration into the future of B2B e-commerce growth. You know, is it going to happen like a rocket, like going straight and even, or is it going to be all scattered, you know, with drawbacks and, you know, uneven development into the future?
I'd say it's like a rocket.
Like a rocket?
Mine's uneven.
Uneven. Yeah. Okay.
That's fantastic. I think it's the first time I've ever done rapid fire, and we always had a disagreement. There was no one pattern. That shows us how you know, this space is still exploring and finding itself, and everybody has a different view on that, and that just shows the relevance of the topic. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good.
You have your last question, Lars.
Now I want to move over to the questions, the Q&A from the audience. We have already fantastic questions here. Michael Hofer asking, which best practices and features can B2B e-commerce steal, or I would say borrow, from B2C? And what are areas that require a completely different B2B specific approach? Actually, two questions. What can B2B e-commerce learn, steal, borrow, adapt from B2C, and where doesn't it work? Who want to give it a stab?
Now I'll give it a shot. Michael Hofer, if you're the Michael Hofer that I know, shoot me an email. It'd be nice to be back in touch. So my answer is everything. B2B is still person to person. Discounts work in B2B. Campaigns work in B2B. Brand building works in B2B. Some things need to be adapted, some things need to be adjusted. It's not as trivial as that. But I feel that because B2C is more advanced than B2B at this moment in time, there's a ton to steal with pride. So I think any ones of the promotion mechanisms and all the other tricks of the trade that B2C uses can be applied with slight adjustments to B2B.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that answer? Otherwise, we'll move on.
I think he added.
And I think that as humans, it's the same. You know, if you personalize my experience, why are you doing it because I bought a shirt, but not something else? It's the same thing. We want the same thing. We want the fact that people are proactive. They know us. We want the personalization, and we want real time, and we want more options. I think whether we're B2B customer or B2C, it's the same. It's all human.
Let's go to another question. There are claims that over 70% of today's B2B buyers are actually already millennials, and they are responsible for the B2B e-commerce growth. So is that a concern because maybe B2B is not ready for millennials making those decisions?
I don't think it's a concern. I think that it's up to us, all companies, to be ready for the consumer's demand. It's not a concern. If everything that you see in all industry across, it's all motivated by consumer demands. So to me, it's not a concern. To me, it's actually a good thing that the consumer is pushing us to innovate. The consumer is pushing us to take it to a next level. So it's not a concern at all.
But maybe then the question, you know, how much is the consumer pushing us, and how much? I have the feeling from what I'm hearing today that B2B was kind of the slower, you know, was trailing behind, and now it's forced. Has B2B in e-commerce lost the ability to actually innovate and pull the consumer? I have the feeling it's more a push than a pull right now.
Just quickly, I think that if you look at all traditional industry, it's always a push. If you look at healthcare, it was a push. It will be a push from us to tell the nurse not to put in my medical logs in a notebook. Get something and automate my claims. So I think it's always going to be a push for traditional industry.
Okay. I would add just very briefly on it. It has to be a push.
Mm-hmm.
There's no player that can force some kind of innovation on the market because they think it's right. It has to originate with the customers in the marketplace. It's the only way innovation happens. And if now that push is coming, great. The more the better, and we'll have to adapt.
Just, you know, and then we move on. It's just like, you know, what the Ford Motor Company founder said. If people would have asked me what they wanted, they would have asked faster horses.
Correct. And you don't get from a candle to a light bulb through continuous innovation. Yes. But what people did ask for is faster transportation. They would have worded it as, give me a faster horse. The answer to that was a car.
Okay. Andreas.
Well, I'm just looking at questions. So there is one question coming also. So can augmented reality and virtual reality impact B2B e-commerce like it has B2C?
Or has it?
Or yeah, has it in B2C? I'm actually wondering whether it has really impacted. But I mean, word on AR and VR. Is it possible to kind of stand in a, you know, in a mine somewhere in Indonesia and do, you know, from your own kind of living room and do a sales? This is how I would translate it, you know, do a sales on a big project. I don't know.
I think if you peel the onion, the objective and the benefits of AR and VR is the same, is for you to visualize. So if you look at whether you're B2B or B2C customer, it's all goods. It's all the needs. The needs of visualization, the needs for you to be proactive to get the goods in before something happens, you to reduce surprises, or just to align, you know, design needs and stuff. So I think if you look at just what is AR and VR, again, the human has the same need, and why it's very popular for B2C. You will see that it should be as popular as B2B, but people just need to invest in it. They cannot treat B2B differently than B2C, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in.
Yeah, I think I would just answer it in saying there are a lot of other issues to solve before we go into AR and VR, right? I think that's maybe an answer. Yeah, well, Lars, there are so many questions coming in. I cannot even, I cannot follow all of them. So
maybe let's look into how do you prevent, and that's I know a question that Andreas will get excited about because we touched on it. How do you prevent channel conflicts with, for example, sales reps as you push B2B e-commerce? It's really back to the question we already started talking about, right? Those channel conflicts, because we've seen it on consumer side. You don't want to cannibalize your retail outlets, but you need them most likely to display your stores. But then how do you prevent those conflicts, or is it completely different for B2B?
Maybe I can take this on for this. So at the end of the day, when we look at what the sales rep are, right? The role of them is actually to do something that is beyond. Beyond means they are the ones that build the relationship to the non-digital stores. And usually for non-digital stores, these are business owners. So that is where the relationship is very important. And then the next thing is about when they are at the store, they can actually do something that is more value adding. So value adding is like, for example, replenishing the shelves for the bosses. And that is where it ties back to the first thing of building relationship. And the third one is that because they are still going to so many different stores, they understand what is the planogram and how do you other consumers see what to look out for on the shelf. So these are things that you can't do digitally yet. And the last one I would say is more of info sharing. So as they are actually going to the stores, they talk to so many different people, they are able to share and share around the information to even help the bosses to improve the businesses. And if you look at currently the kind of the scope of the sales rep, they go to so many different stores. Where exactly is the focus? So this is where digital, I would say, is more of a like enabler to help them to focus on the important stores and also try to make the longer tail outlets to be more automated or more digitized. So this is, I would say, it's more of a complement at this point instead of like a conflict.
Okay, thank you. Andreas, maybe we have time for one or two more questions.
So one of the burning questions I have obviously is lead generation. You know, as a B2B senior leader, also as a you know, owner of an SME company somewhere in Thailand, you ask yourself, okay, how can I generate new sales? You know, and so how is that, or how can digital e-commerce platforms help actually to generate additional sales or lead generation?
So I can have a quick stab at that. It's basically accessing audiences that otherwise you wouldn't have access to. There's a million great examples. One example that I'll share is LinkedIn or Facebook have the ability to create what's called like audiences. In other words, you share with LinkedIn or with Facebook or any other platform, say, hey, these are 1,000 examples of customers that typically buy my product. Here's an ad that I would like them to see. Now show this ad to 80,000 non-customers that are like my audience. And that's just one example of tapping into B2B audiences that otherwise you would never have access to. Creating those leads and pre-qualifying your audience in that manner is something that 10 years ago was unimaginable, and now it's common practice.
Yeah, but you also need to work on your data quality, right? You need to then map who is the influencer, who is the decision maker, who is the supporter. You look at a complex buying center, that might be very critical.
So it depends, because if you pick the customers in your database that you think are the most influential, that's a pre-selection. And then the algorithm can say, here are the customers that are like that one. And then you don't have to, go through a phone directory and say, this is probably the decision maker. The algorithm will do that. It doesn't always work. It doesn't work in every industry, but it works more often than one thinks it does.
Okay.
Maybe the very last quick question. What are the key challenges? I don't need the world story of that, but what are the key challenges when digitalizing B2B e-commerce supply chains? What are the key challenges? I think, Lisa, this question was waiting for you.
Thank you. I think the key challenges actually is to find a solution that can put all of your ecosystem into one platform. And then to manage that change of implementation. Because when you digitize, and of course for all of us, for all of you guys out there, it's just a lot of stakeholders. You have your company, you have all of the business functions, and then you have your 3PLs as well. So to manage the expectation, to also audit that change control. A lot of people do digitization and then they lose when the user adoption rate goes down or the user are not compliant. So my recommendation is whatever solution you choose, that solution should cover your entire logistic network. It should allow you to give you on-demand changes so that because all of our business requirement changes, our needs changes. So don't find one that you can hard code and then later you can't do anything to it. So find one that is flexible, highly configurable, and then have it in a way where you can easily monitor and then also make sure the user compliance are there.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think we're coming already to the end, and I think it was a great last reply to sum it all up, bring it all together in an ideal world. And some of the sound bites that I picked up is what Lisa, building on what you just said, to enable this platform, you first need to have access to information. But one of the biggest challenges, especially in this part of the world, is what you said, taboo. Trust seems to be a taboo word, right? And I think it was Martin or who said, in Southeast Asia especially, because manpower is cheap, often we just throw 10 more people at a problem and hope it solves itself. We didn't have that force of digitalization for a long time. And Martin was explaining that e-commerce and B2B has both head and tailwinds that will bring us to the next level. That ASEAN has a lot of things that we should be proud of, and we are market leaders in some parts. Just it's not one homogeneous market; it's distributed very unevenly. And Ruips was sharing that as we're looking into the post-COVID world, how can companies like DKSH help those partners that you said are kind of COVID muted, right? Those are at the forefront, they started out, but how can you especially help those that have been kind of overwhelmed with the situation? How can you help them and shift your resources to support them to get through this and come out of this stronger? And I think that wraps up our episode today. Thank you so much, Lisa, Martin, Ruips, and of course, Andreas. Thanks to all the helpers behind the scenes. Thanks to the fantastic supporters, SwissChem and Deloitte, and especially for today, DKSH, the supporter and sponsor of the B2B category of the DX Awards. Please, everybody.
And Lars, I want to say a special thank you. I mean, DKSH was the first sponsor to sign up for that award. So they were the initial guys that believed in us. So big thank you to Hanno Elbrechter and Alex Bono. Great guys, visionaries, I would say.
Okay. Thank you. So everybody on the call, please, the participants, thanks for tuning in. Please fill out the survey right after the webinar so that we are able to serve you even better, because the whole purpose of DX Leaders is to bring interesting stories, angles, and insights to you, have a platform for you to ask your questions. The next questions you can ask, again, next Tuesday, 29th of September, 5 p.m. The next episode, Product Digitalization, Creating Market Realities. Back here in 7 days. Thank you very much and have a wonderful afternoon and evening.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.